Imagine coming home to find out your entire marriage has been built on lies. Dan thought he had the perfect life, 7 years of marriage, 2 beautiful kids, and a wife he trusted. But when a single text message unraveled everything, he discovered not just an affair, but a calculated betrayal that would turn his world upside down. This isn't just a story about infidelity, it's about revenge, resilience, and taking back control. Stick around to hear how one man exposed the ultimate betrayal and walked away stronger than ever. My name's Dan, and I'd been married to Rachel for 7 years. I thought we had a good thing going, 2 kids, a house we both loved, and what I thought was a solid relationship. But over the past few months, something shifted, and not in a small way. Rachel started acting off. She was suddenly glued to her phone, laughing at texts and hiding her screen whenever I walked by. At first, I chalked it up to harmless gossip with her friends, but then she became snappy. Little things that never bothered her before suddenly set her off. If I was 5 minutes late coming home from work, she'd bite my head off. She started going out more, too. Girls' nights. That seemed to happen 3 or 4 times a week. And her excuse? It's been so stressful at home. I need this for my mental health. Okay, I get that being a mom and working part-time is hard, but I was picking up the slack at home, helping with the kids, cooking, cleaning. Hell, I even started doing her share of laundry. Despite all that, Rachel acted like I was her personal punching bag. The real kicker? I found a credit card bill a few weeks ago. She's always been in charge of finances, but for some reason, she left this one lying on the kitchen counter. I glanced at it. God help me, I couldn't resist, and there it was, charges for fancy lingerie, a spa day I didn't know about, and a pricey hotel downtown. She never once mentioned these things to me. I confronted her casually. Hey, saw that bill on the counter. What's the hotel charge for? Her face didn't even flinch. Oh, that was a girls' spa weekend. We needed a getaway. Her response was so smooth that, for a second, I felt guilty for doubting her. But then I noticed her hands were trembling as she poured her coffee. She was lying. I just didn't have the proof, yet. After the credit card bill incident, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going on. Rachel's behavior didn't improve. In fact, she became even more secretive. She started taking her phone with her everywhere. Bathroom, laundry room, even the garage when she went to grab something. It felt like she was always guarding it, like she thought I'd snatch it away and crack the code to whatever secrets she was hiding. One night, after she'd gone to bed, I got an idea. Rachel always left her phone charging on her nightstand. I waited until I was sure she was asleep, then tiptoed into the bedroom and grabbed it. My heart was racing. I knew her passcode, she didn't think I did, and as soon as I unlocked it, my stomach dropped. There was a text thread pinned at the top of her messages with someone named Kyle. No last name, just Kyle. I hesitated before opening it, but my curiosity won out. The first thing I saw was a picture of her. She was wearing one of the pieces of lingerie she had apparently bought on that girls' spa weekend. She was standing in a mirror, her body posed in a way I hadn't seen her do in years. The caption read, "Wish you were here to take this off me instead of just staring at pics." I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. The thread was full of messages between them. Flirty banter, inside jokes I didn't recognize, and details about meetups. She'd been sneaking around during those supposed girls' nights, meeting Kyle in hotels and at his apartment. The timestamps made it clear this wasn't new. It had been going on for months, maybe longer. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or vomit. My hands were trembling so badly I almost dropped the phone. I snapped a few screenshots and emailed them to myself for evidence. Then I carefully placed her phone back on the charger, exactly how I'd found it, and left the room. I spent the rest of the night sitting on the couch in the dark. My mind raced with questions. Who the hell was Kyle? How long had this been going on? And why, after all the years, the life we'd built, why would she do this? The next morning, Rachel acted completely normal. She even kissed me on the cheek as I sipped my coffee. I wanted to confront her right then and there, but I couldn't. Not yet. I needed a plan. I couldn't hold it in for long. By the next evening, after replaying the evidence in my head all day, I decided I had to confront Rachel. I had a vague idea of how it would go. She'd deny it, then maybe cry and beg for forgiveness. But reality turned out to be much worse. I waited until the kids were asleep. We were sitting in the living room. She was scrolling through her phone, smiling at whatever Kyle had probably sent her. "Rachel," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. She looked up, startled. "What?" "I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me." Her face immediately shifted. The casual, relaxed expression vanished, replaced by a tight-lipped frown. "Okay." I leaned forward, my hands clasped tightly together to stop them from shaking. "Who's Kyle?" Her eyes widened for a split second before she covered it with a laugh. "Kyle? What are you talking about? Don't lie to me, Rachel. I saw the messages. I know about the hotels. I know about the lingerie. So tell me the truth." Her face turned pale, and her mouth opened and closed like she was searching for the right words. Then, as if flipping a switch, she narrowed her eyes at me. "You went through my phone?" she snapped. "That's what you're worried about? That I went through your phone?" My voice was rising, and I was trying to keep it low for the kids' sake. "How long has this been going on? Who the hell is he?" Rachel stood up, arms crossed. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice dripping with irritation. "Kyle's just a friend. He's been helping me with some stuff." "Helping you with some stuff?" I barked. "Are you serious right now? You're sending him pictures of yourself half naked and meeting him at hotels, and you want me to believe he's just a friend?" She sighed dramatically, like she was the one who should be annoyed. "Okay, fine. I'll admit it, it started as flirting. But it didn't mean anything. I was lonely, Dan. You're always working, and I needed someone to talk to. That's all it was." "All it was?" I repeated, incredulous. "You've been sleeping with him, Rachel. Don't even try to deny it. I have the texts. I know everything." Her face turned red, and she threw her arms in the air. "Fine. You want the truth? Yes, I've been seeing Kyle. But it's your fault. You've been so checked out of this marriage, I didn't know what else to do. I needed to feel wanted." My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe the audacity. "My fault? You've been sneaking around, lying to my face, and cheating on me, and you're going to sit there and blame me? Maybe if you paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have had to find it somewhere else," she shot back. At that moment, I knew there was no salvaging this. The person standing in front of me wasn't the woman I married. She was a stranger, cold and manipulative, and she wasn't even sorry for what she'd done. "Pack a bag," I said, my voice deadly calm. "What?" "Pack a bag and leave. Go to Kyle's, go to a hotel, I don't care. But you're not staying here tonight. You're kicking me out?" she scoffed. "Yes, Rachel. I am. You can come back tomorrow to talk about what happens next, but I can't even look at you right now." She stood there, glaring at me for what felt like an eternity, then finally stormed upstairs. Minutes later, I heard her car screech out of the driveway. I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands. I had no idea what to do next, but one thing was certain: my marriage was over. The silence in the house after Rachel left was suffocating. I stayed on the couch for hours, staring blankly at the wall. The weight of it all, the betrayal, the lies, the audacity of her trying to blame me, felt like a lead blanket pressing down on my chest. When the morning came, I still hadn't slept. I was running on adrenaline and anger. I started making calls. First, to my lawyer, Tom. We'd known each other for years, and I trusted him to guide me through this mess. Dan, he said after I explained everything, this is going to get messy. Do you have proof? I have screenshots of her texts with the guy, I replied. That's good, Tom said, sounding satisfied. We'll need more if you want leverage in the divorce. Financial records, photos, anything that shows how she's been spending money or neglecting her responsibilities. Can you get that? I'll figure it out, I said. The next call I made was to my parents. I told them the bare minimum, that Rachel and I were separating and that I'd need help with the kids. My mom, bless her, didn't ask too many questions. She just said they'd take the kids for a few days if I needed time to sort things out. I spent the rest of the day going through Rachel's credit card statements and phone records. What I found made my blood boil. Charges for fancy restaurants, flowers, hotel stays, it was all there, clear as day. She hadn't even tried to hide it. By late afternoon, Rachel showed up at the house. She was wearing sunglasses, her face stony. I opened the door, and before she could say anything I said, "The kids are upstairs. Don't make a scene." She walked past me without a word, went upstairs, and came back down with a small suitcase. "So, what's the plan?" she asked, her voice flat. "The plan?" I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "The plan is you pack the rest of your things and go stay with Kyle. Or better yet, get your own place. We'll figure out custody and everything else through lawyers." She flinched at the mention of lawyers. "Do we really need to involve lawyers? Can't we just work this out?" "Work this out?" I laughed bitterly. "You cheated on me, Rachel. You lied to me, blamed me, and destroyed our family. Do you honestly think there's anything left to work out?" Her expression hardened. "You're such a martyr, Dan. Like you've been a perfect husband. You're always working, always tired. Maybe if you'd put half the energy into this marriage that you put into your job, we wouldn't be here." I shook my head, too drained to argue. "Save it, Rachel. Just go. I don't want to hear any more excuses." She left without another word, slamming the door behind her. I stood there for a moment, the sound of her car fading into the distance. For the first time since discovering the affair, I felt a strange sense of relief. It was over. But I knew the hard part was just beginning. The days after Rachel moved out were surreal. My parents took the kids for a few nights, giving me the space to figure things out. I thought I'd be relieved, but instead, I felt like I was walking through a fog. Every room in the house reminded me of the life we had built together, the life she destroyed. I was deep into sorting through financial documents one night when my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. Normally, I wouldn't answer, but something told me to pick up. "Hello? Dan?" The voice on the other end was hesitant but familiar. "This is Kyle's wife, Sarah." My stomach dropped. Hi. I know this is out of the blue," she said, her voice trembling, "but I think we need to talk." Sarah and I had met once, years ago, at a barbecue Rachel hosted. I remembered her as quiet and polite, the type who blended into the background. Now, her voice was raw, almost desperate. "What's going on?" I asked, though I had a pretty good idea. She let out a shaky breath. "I found out about Rachel and Kyle. I've known for a few weeks, but I didn't know what to do. I saw your number in one of Kyle's texts and—" She trailed off, like she wasn't sure how to finish the thought. For a moment, I was too stunned to speak. "Wait, you saw my number? Kyle was texting Rachel about me?" "Yes," she said, her voice quieter now. "They were mocking you." My grip on the phone tightened. "What exactly did they say?" "They joked about how clueless you were," she admitted reluctantly. "Kyle called you the perfect patsy. Rachel said you were too busy being boring to notice. My chest tightened, anger rising like a tidal wave. I wanted to punch something, anything. But Sarah wasn't finished. I need to tell you something else, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Kyle told Rachel he wants her to leave you for him. He's planning to move her into our house. What? I snapped, standing up so quickly my chair nearly tipped over. And what about you? What's his plan for you? She let out a bitter laugh. Oh, I'm just supposed to disappear, I guess. He doesn't care. But Dan, there's more. Kyle's been using your wife to get to your money. My money? I echoed, confused. Yes. He knows Rachel has access to your joint accounts. He told her to drain as much as she could before she left you. They were planning to use it to pay off debts and fund some new life together. I felt like the floor was crumbling beneath me. Are you sure about this? I saw the texts, Dan. He doesn't even hide it from me anymore. He said he'll file for divorce next week and that Rachel's supposed to do the same. My mind raced. This wasn't just an affair, it was a calculated scheme. And Rachel wasn't just complicit, she was in on it. Why are you telling me this? I asked, still trying to process everything. Because I'm done being his doormat, Sarah said firmly. And because I think we can help each other. Kyle and Rachel think they've won, but they don't know we're talking. We can use that to our advantage. Her words sparked something in me, a flicker of determination. I wasn't going to let Rachel and Kyle ruin my life, not without a fight. What do you have in mind? I asked. Sarah and I spent the next 2 hours on the phone, piecing together everything we knew about Rachel and Kyle's affair and their plans. The more we talked, the angrier I became. But anger wasn't enough. I needed a plan. Sarah, surprisingly, was sharper than I gave her credit for. Kyle thinks I'm too scared to fight back, she said, her voice steady now. But I've been gathering proof. Bank statements, texts, emails. He's careless. And if you're willing to work with me, we can corner them both. I'm in, I said without hesitation. What do you need from me? First, secure your finances, she said. Move any money out of joint accounts into one under your name only. If Rachel has access to credit cards, freeze them immediately. And if there's a way to document her spending, do it. We'll need everything. I had already started pulling financial records after speaking with my lawyer, but Sarah's suggestion gave me a renewed sense of urgency. What about you? I asked. What's your next move? I've hired a private investigator, she revealed. He's already gotten photos of them meeting up. If we time this right, we can both file for divorce with evidence of adultery and financial misconduct. It'll hit them like a freight train. As the conversation went on, I realized Sarah and I weren't just two betrayed spouses seeking revenge. We were building a partnership. There was something oddly satisfying about teaming up against them, like we were reclaiming control of a situation they thought they'd mastered. Before hanging up, Sarah said, Dan, whatever happens, we need to stay calm. They'll try to twist this around and make us look like the bad guys. Don't give them that chance. Got it, I said. Let's do this. Over the next few days, I went into overdrive. I transferred all but a few $100s out of our joint account into a new one Rachel couldn't access. I froze the credit card she used and flagged suspicious transactions, including several Kyle-related expenses she'd tried to hide. I also reached out to Tom, my lawyer, with the new information Sarah had shared. This changes things, Tom said. If you can prove she's been siphoning money for her affair, we have grounds to protect your assets and pursue damages. And if she's been neglecting her parental responsibilities, that's another point in your favor for custody. Meanwhile, Sarah's PI delivered more evidence. Photos of Rachel and Kyle at a hotel, time-stamped to the same days Rachel claimed she was with her friends. Bank statements showing Rachel paying for Kyle's debts, and even a plane ticket he booked for some business trip. The pieces were falling into place. Then, something unexpected happened. Rachel called me. "Dan, we need to talk," she said, her tone softer than I'd heard in weeks. "Can we meet for dinner? Just the two of us." Part of me wanted to slam the phone down, but I kept my voice calm. "Why? What's there to talk about? I want to make things right," she said. "I've been thinking, and maybe we can fix this." I almost laughed out loud. Fix this? After everything? But instead of shutting her down, I agreed. If she wanted to talk, I'd let her dig her own grave. "Sure, Rachel," I said. "Let's meet." Rachel picked a trendy restaurant downtown for our talk. I could already sense her angle: choose a public place, keep emotions in check, and paint herself as the rational one. I arrived early and sat near the back, where we'd have some privacy but still be surrounded by enough people to keep things from escalating. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. She had dressed up, new dress, perfect makeup, and a look on her face that said she thought she still had control of the situation. "Dan," she said with a small smile as she slid into the seat across from me. I nodded. "Rachel." For a moment neither of us spoke. I could see her sizing me up, trying to gauge my mood. Then she started. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she said, her voice soft and measured. "And I know I've made mistakes. I haven't been the wife I should have been, and I'm sorry for that." I raised an eyebrow. "Mistakes? Is that what we're calling cheating and stealing now?" Her face flushed, but she didn't miss a beat. "I know I hurt you, Dan. But I think we can move past this. We've built a life together, a family. We owe it to ourselves to try." It was hard to keep my composure, but I did. "Rachel, let me ask you something. How long were you planning to keep Kyle a secret? Or were you hoping to run off with him and take everything with you?" Her eyes widened, and for a split second, I saw genuine panic. But she quickly masked it with indignation. "Kyle? Are you seriously still stuck on that? He doesn't mean anything to me. It was a stupid mistake." I leaned forward, keeping my voice low and steady. "A mistake is one night. What you've been doing, sneaking around, lying, funneling money to him, that's not a mistake. That's a choice. A calculated one." She opened her mouth to protest, but I cut her off. "And don't even try to deny it. I have the bank statements, the hotel bills, the texts. I know everything, Rachel." Her face turned ashen. For the first time, I saw her confidence falter. You've been spying on me?" "Spying?" I scoffed. "No, Rachel. I was putting together the truth because you didn't have the decency to tell me yourself." She sat back, her hands trembling slightly. "Okay, fine," she said after a long pause. "Yes, I've been seeing Kyle. But it wasn't about you, Dan. It was about me. I was unhappy, and I didn't know how to tell you. I needed something for myself." "For yourself?" I said, my voice rising slightly despite my efforts to stay calm. "You had a husband who loved you, 2 beautiful kids, and a stable life. What more could you possibly need?" I needed to feel alive. She shot back, her voice finally cracking. "You don't understand, Dan. You never will." I shook my head, laughing bitterly. "You're right about one thing. I'll never understand how you could throw away everything for someone like him. And speaking of Kyle, does he know you're here begging to fix things with me? Or is he part of this little scheme?" Rachel's eyes darted to the side, her telltale sign that I'd hit a nerve. "That's what I thought," I said, leaning back in my chair. "Here's what's going to happen, Rachel. You're going to pack your things, move out for good, and we'll let the lawyers handle the rest. You and Kyle can have each other, but you're not taking another dime from me. And if you even think about dragging this out, I'll make sure the court sees every piece of evidence I have. She stared at me, her eyes welling up with tears. For a moment, I thought she might actually apologize, but instead, she played the victim. You're just going to throw away everything we had? What about the kids, Dan? Do you want to tear this family apart? No, Rachel, I said coldly. You tore this family apart. I'm just cleaning up the mess you made. Rachel didn't take the ultimatum well. She stormed out of the restaurant that night, her face red with a mix of rage and humiliation. As she left, she hissed something about how I'd regret this. I just sat there, watching her go, feeling a strange combination of relief and exhaustion. The next day, the texts started. At first, they were apologetic. I didn't mean for things to go this far, Dan. Please, let's talk again. For the kids. Then they turned defensive. You were never there for me. You don't understand how lonely I've been. This is just as much your fault as mine. Finally, they became outright venomous. You think you're so perfect? Go ahead, take your precious evidence to court. You're going to look like a fool when everyone knows how cold and distant you've been. I ignored her. I'd already decided that all communication from now on would go through my lawyer. Rachel could rant and rage all she wanted. It wasn't going to change anything. Meanwhile, Sarah had her own developments. She called me 2 days later with an update. Kyle's getting suspicious, she said. He's been asking me why I'm so calm about the divorce. I think he knows I've got something on him. Good, I said. Let him sweat. Sarah had been keeping Kyle in the dark about her next moves, and it was paying off. Her PI had captured a treasure trove of evidence, photos, videos, even audio recordings of Kyle and Rachel discussing their plans. The most damning piece? A recorded conversation where Kyle explicitly told Rachel to take as much money from me as she could. He's going to regret underestimating me, Sarah said with quiet determination. We decided it was time to strike. The next week, Sarah and I coordinated with our lawyers to file for divorce, on the same day. The court filings included all the evidence we'd gathered: infidelity, financial misconduct, and neglect of family responsibilities. It was a double hit that neither Kyle nor Rachel saw coming. The fallout was immediate. Rachel called me, frantic. Dan, what the hell is this? You filed for divorce? And you're trying to freeze the accounts? Yes, I said simply. That's exactly what I'm doing. You can't do this. I'll fight you on everything. She spat. Go ahead, I said, my voice calm. But you'll lose. You're not just up against me, Rachel. You're up against the truth. Kyle, on the other hand, turned on Sarah. She told me later that he'd come home that evening, ranting about betrayal and how she'd ruined his life. You ruined your own life, Sarah told him. And if you think you're walking away from this unscathed, you're wrong. The icing on the cake came a few days later when Sarah and I confronted them together. We arranged a meeting at Kyle's house under the guise of discussing divorce logistics. When Rachel and Kyle saw the two of us walking together, their faces turned pale. What's going on? Kyle demanded. We're here to make things clear, Sarah said, her voice icy. We know everything. The affair, the money, the lies. And we're not playing your games anymore. Rachel tried to speak, but I cut her off. Save it, Rachel. You've done enough damage. From now on, everything goes through our lawyers. And if you think you're walking away with anything more than the bare minimum, you're delusional. Kyle sneered. You think you're so smart? Good luck proving anything in court. Sarah smiled, pulling out a folder. Oh, we don't need luck. We have this. She tossed the folder onto the table. Inside were the photos, texts, and audio recordings. Kyle's smug expression disappeared as he flipped through the evidence. This is illegal, he stammered. No, Sarah said calmly. It's perfectly admissible. And it's more than enough to ensure you get exactly what you deserve. Rachel looked at me, her eyes pleading. Dan, please. Don't do this. For the kids. I met her gaze, my voice steady. You should have thought about the kids before you blew up our family. This is on you, Rachel. Not me. By the time we left, Rachel was in tears, and Kyle looked like he wanted to punch a wall. Sarah and I walked out together, feeling victorious for the first time in weeks. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of legal proceedings, difficult conversations with the kids, and honestly a lot of self-reflection. Rachel and Kyle both tried to fight the divorce filings, but with the mountain of evidence Sarah and I had built, their options were limited. Rachel's lawyer pushed for a settlement early on, likely realizing how bad her case looked. She tried to play the devoted mother card, arguing for primary custody of the kids. But Tom, my lawyer, dismantled her argument. She's been neglecting the kids for months while pursuing her affair, he said during one meeting. We have documentation of missed school pickups and evidence that Dan has been the primary caregiver during this time. In the end, I was awarded majority custody, with Rachel getting visitation rights. The court also granted my request to freeze the accounts she tried to drain, leaving her to rely on whatever scraps Kyle could provide. Kyle didn't fare much better. Sarah's PI had done such a thorough job that even his own lawyer advised him to settle. The evidence of his financial manipulation, combined with the adultery claims, left him with little leverage. Sarah got the house, her fair share of their joint assets, and a restraining order against Kyle after he showed up drunk at her doorstep one night, shouting about how she'd ruined his life. I'll admit, hearing about Kyle's spiral was satisfying. But it wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about rebuilding. Rachel moved into a small apartment a few miles away. She tried to put on a brave face when she saw the kids, but I could tell she was struggling. At first, she bombarded me with texts, alternating between apologizing and blaming me for how things turned out. I ignored them all. The kids adjusted better than I expected. I told them as much of the truth as I could without dragging them into adult problems. Mom and I aren't together anymore, but we both love you very much, I explained. They seemed to accept it, though my oldest, Lily, asked me one night, Daddy, did Mom do something bad? I hesitated before answering. She made some choices that hurt me and hurt our family, I said carefully. But that doesn't mean she doesn't love you. Sarah and I kept in touch after everything settled. We became unexpected friends, bonded by shared betrayal and the strange camaraderie of taking down our cheating spouses. We met for coffee a few times to update each other on our post-divorce lives, and I realized just how strong she was. Do you ever think about dating again? She asked me during one of those meetings. I laughed. Not anytime soon. I think I need to figure out who I am outside of all this first. She nodded. Same. But hey, at least we've proven we're good at catching liars. Looking back, I've learned a lot from this experience. Betrayal cuts deep, but it doesn't define you. People like Rachel and Kyle thrive on control and deception, but when you take that control back, they have nothing. If I could give anyone in a similar situation advice, it would be this: trust your instincts, gather proof, and don't let anger cloud your judgment. Revenge feels good in the moment, but the real victory is reclaiming your peace and building a life that's better than the one they tried to destroy. I've still got a long way to go, but for the first time in months, I feel like I'm on solid ground. And that's enough for now.